On Capitol Hill, a group of bipartisan lawmakers rejected the defund the police slogan. The group's now calling on congressional leadership to pass a bill to grant more funding to police officers. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with the details.
It's National Police Week, and Congress members on Capitol Hill are honoring officers across the country. In 2021, there were 458 officers who died in the line of duty. That's a 55% increase over the year before. This in-the-field danger factor is coupled with sinking morale in the profession, leading to a nationwide police shortage.
And over the last 3 years, we've heard a lot of rhetoric up here about defunding the police. And so first of all, I want to thank every one of those law enforcement individuals that stayed on post.
Their gratitude today is accompanied by a bipartisan bill to grant more funding for officers.
We need to fund, not defund, local law enforcement to keep them and our communities safe.
The bill targets small police departments and would offer grant money, giving officers bonuses to keep them on the job.
I think what we've seen over the years, at least in my communities, is continued loss of local financial resources, local governments going through stress, some of them actually going into bankruptcy. So that's a fairly recent phenomenon. It's one of the reasons this is important.
At the same time, police staffing is going down, crime is going up. The president of a sheriff's union in California told me that one reason is a more relaxed approach to crime.
Decriminalization of many laws, decriminalization of substance abuse specifically, which then kind of exacerbated the problem of mental health. The drug addiction problem in this country has really grown.
This bill would also provide up to $10,000 for officers to get a degree in mental or public health or social work.
Melina, how's the support looking in Congress on this proposal to actually fund the police? And on addressing crime, some officers have said that the relaxed standards for prosecuting crimes in some areas have emboldened criminals. Do these lawmakers that you've heard from feel any sense of responsibility to do something about this to help lower crime?
Well, Steve, this is the exact question that we did ask that group of Congress members, and they didn't want to answer. Some of them said that it should be up to the state and local level to make these types of decisions. Another congressman that we spoke to right after that press conference, he's from Michigan, he said that this is not something he's seen in his district, so he had no comment on this. Now, as far as whether this would actually pass and why leadership has not brought it to the floor for a vote, we asked about this as well. Representative Gottheimer, who's leading this initiative, says that he's confident it could get enough votes in the House to pass. We did see today there were representatives from both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. A similar bill has been introduced on the Senate side, so it would move rather quickly if leadership decided to bring it to the floor for a vote. Now, one of the holdups may be because within the Democrat Party, there's still that small faction of representatives who still support reforming the police and defunding the police. So this could be one holdup that's keeping leadership from bringing it to the floor. But the Congress members here say that the time is now, and they're really putting pressure on leadership to act. Steve, back to you.
The U.S. is facing an unprecedented shortage of baby formula, triggering panic nationwide. A leading baby formula maker says that it could take at least 2 months to restock stores. Several months ago, the largest national supplier of baby formula, Abbott Laboratories, was forced to close down its plant in Sturgis, Michigan. It's because the FDA said the facility was unsanitary. Abbott Labs issued a voluntary recall of its products after complaints that some babies had become sick and 2 even died. Abbott released a statement yesterday saying that, subject to FDA approval, the baby formula making facility can restart within 2 weeks. Chair of the House Republican Conference, Elise Stefanik, held a press conference earlier with over 15 of her colleagues on Capitol Hill. They're highlighting the growing crisis of baby formula shortages throughout the country. We had a chance to catch up with her afterwards to find out how this could happen in the United States of America.
Because this is Joe Biden's failed leadership, so this goes back to months ago, and my office has been a real leader on this issue. There was the recall of formula being manufactured and produced in Sturgis, Michigan. The FDA had absolutely no plan how to address that aspect of the supply chain crisis, but it even goes back earlier than that as a result of just the labor shortage in this country, the lack of accessing basic materials that are part of the manufacturing process. But what's really struck me is the sheer incompetence of Joe Biden and House Democrats, and frankly, frankly, failure to address any aspect of this. I wrote a letter in February reaching out to the FDA demanding, what is your plan? What is your plan, not only given the recall of formula being produced in Sturgis, Michigan, but what's your plan moving forward? We got no substantive response. Earlier this week, Ashley Hinson and I, she's a newly elected woman member, a mom of 2 from Iowa, reached out to the FDA again, saying, again, what is your immediate plan? No action. What did we hear from the White House yesterday? We heard absolute laughter, which is laughing in the face of moms and dads across this country. I'm a mom of my 9-month-old Sam. He's formula fed, and I will tell you, there are grandmothers across this country who every morning check to make sure Sam has enough formula, and we are very cognizant of the challenges this creates for families, particularly in rural communities like mine.
There are reports that the Biden administration is sending baby formula down to the border to support these illegal immigrants that are being detained down there. What's to make of that, and should this highlight the crisis on the border even further?
This is an example of the America last position of this administration. They're doing everything they can to put American families absolutely last. They're prioritizing illegal immigrants, illegal families over American babies. I went down to the border just weeks ago. I saw the shelves of formula down there, and it's a humanitarian crisis at the border. There is nothing compassionate about an open border. That's why it's important for us to secure the borders. But the fact that American mothers and fathers are desperately searching for formula, and yet you have taxpayer-funded formula going down to the southern border, that's un-American.
Killing for their organs. It may sound hard to believe, but experts and lawmakers are pointing to mounting evidence that the Chinese Communist Party is indeed committing a crime against humanity. But why isn't it more widely known?
My scalp find its way cutting his skin. Blood can be seen. It implies that his heart was still pumping blood, and his body was struggling. He was alive.
That's Chinese surgeon Enver Toti recalling to lawmakers his former role in China's lucrative practice of harvesting organs from prisoners of conscience.
Thus, we see religious dissidents targeted for harvesting. First and foremost, the Falun Gong.
A House panel on Thursday examined evidence pointing to a large-scale state-sanctioned practice of forced organ harvesting in China. Matthew Robertson, who co-authored a recent research report, said his team analyzed hundreds of Chinese medical papers and found 71 cases in which organs were removed from living donors.
The papers appear to show that the donors, who were prisoners, were alive at the time of the surgery and were killed by the transplant surgeons in the process of heart extraction.
And the unusually short waiting time for organ transplants in China points to the same conclusion.
Waiting times were advertised in weeks and days, suggesting that a pool of blood-type donors was available for execution and organ harvesting on demand.
Beijing claimed that their organs come from voluntary donors. But a London-based People's Tribunal in 2019 concluded that China continues to forcibly harvest organs on a large scale, with Falun Gong practitioners being the main target.
And we tested both the factual evidence and then the legal factual conclusions on the strictest basis, proof beyond reasonable doubt.
However,
this terrible, terrible abuse. Why the silence?
A former Assistant Secretary of State said Beijing is using its economic influence to force many to stay silent, even within the U.S. government.
But our intelligence community needs to be all over this, and they're not. And it's politically incorrect to raise these questions. There's way too much money involved.
Meanwhile, lawmakers are pushing to pass bipartisan legislation to stop forced organ harvesting in China.
And much more needs to be done, and the fight must go on.
The bill would sanction those taking part in organ harvesting and require the Department of State to report on those practices.
The Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., located on Pennsylvania Avenue, has sold for a record-breaking $375 million. Miami-based CGI Merchant Group bought the lease. Raul Thomas is the founder and CEO of the group. Thomas released a statement saying that they will be partnering with Hilton to convert the Trump Hotel to a Waldorf Astoria. Eric Trump, who's the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, tweeted saying that he's proud of the sale. And the former president took to Truth Social, where he wished the Waldorf Astoria the best in the acquisition of the property.